So why did you feel this book needed to exist, the fund finance formula, that is, and what were you trying to fill in the finance space?
So the reason why I decided to write this book was, I was really mindful that if I was to write a book, I didn't want it to be like, the kind of finance books that already exist, because what's the point, And obviously it takes time to write books. It takes resources as well. Like, I didn't want trees to get chopped down for something that I just felt like, wasn't super meaningful. But I just had this realization one night, and it kind of like just brought everything together about finances and like how to be good with money and those sorts of things. And I was like, this is something that I can definitely write a book about. And that's why it exists. So basically the concept of the book is that a lot of people think that money is stressful and it's boring and it's dull and it's definitely not fun. But what I have noticed about the people that are successful with money, the people that are good with money, the people that succeed over the long term with their finances, they actually find a way to make it fun and they love it. They love doing it. And that's the reason why I wrote this book, because if you feel like money is boring and it's stressful and it's dull, I hope this book can give you maybe like a fresh perspective on it and like how you can make it fun. And then also for people that already see the joy in saving money, investing, building wealth, but maybe a little bit too extreme, because I definitely have been there as well. And maybe you're not living your life as joyfully as you could, and you feel like anxious about spending money on things that make you happy. Then I hope this book can also give you some peace in knowing that it's okay to spend money on things that you want. It's okay to buy that coffee. It's okay to take that holiday and do those things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, was there a specific moment in your own life where you tipped over the threshold from I'm stressed out money to it's exciting? Like, was there a flashpoint?
I think there was. So at the beginning of my financial journey, I moved out of home at 19. And my dad, I was actually raised by a single stay-at-home dad, and he was extremely frugal, like really frugal. For example, his toothbrush, it looks like it had survived a war. And like he would like squeeze every drop out of like toothpaste, cut things open to like get every last drop. And to be honest, I also am the same with like making sure that I use things up completely before I replace them. But then also I saw the flip side of how I saw how good it was because he didn't have to work. He was financially independent. But then I also saw the flip side of like how it cannot also be so good to have that mindset all the time. For example, my parents actually, the reason why they divorced was because of money, because my dad was so frugal. He was so like extreme. And my mum just wanted to live a little and to spend money and to enjoy life. And it was sad for me because I feel like both of their perspectives are valid and important. And it's just sad that they couldn't find that balance. And I didn't want to repeat that in my own life and to kind of like be so frugal that I never enjoy life and I never see the beauty of how sometimes money can actually buy you nice experiences.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on that, frugal dad and fun non-frugal mum, I get along very well with your mum, let me tell you. So when I talk about was there a moment, did you realise like, oh crap, I'm acting the way my dad did about money. I need to chill out and be a bit more like mum and enjoy life. Was that the self-realisation that I'm just doing what dad would do and looking in that looked painful?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember getting one of my first jobs and at that time we were saving for our first home. So we were renting and basically all of our money was going towards our deposit. And I remember going out for coffee with my friends and because we were saving so hard, we would just like go out for coffee and like not order anything. So we just sit there drinking our water. And like at the beginning, I was convincing myself that the reason why we were doing it was because we wouldn't have to do it forever. But then I guess you kind of get to a certain point where it's like it starts to just keep going on. And when you keep leveling up with your finances, like you might find excuses to like keep on going with those extreme behaviors. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I think we had to draw the line in the sand and be like, it's okay to spend money. But I think the turning point was when I realized that you don't have to spend money on everything. You can spend money on the things that really make you happy and give you value for money. and you can save money in certain areas. So that's what I also
It's
like
interesting
to talk
there.
about.
So you just said, I was thinking like value-based budgeting or whatever that is. Value for money for you might be different than me. And it's not about like there is an objective, if you buy a Toyota, it's probably more value for money versus a GM or no, what are the MG, sorry.
Yeah.
So like there's objective like that costs more but it's better quality. But with our own personal finances, value for money is me, I'm literally taking this $50 and blowing it on XYZ because that's what I value, where someone else might not value that in their own life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so important, and to figure out what those things are.
So you write in the book about chasing lucky money. Do you think parts of the FIRE movement kind of blur these lines between strategy and luck? Like, what's your view on that?
So in the book, I think, I know which part you're talking about. I actually talk about lucky money versus money that's skilled. And I guess my idea in the book is basically that there's money that's lucky and it comes to you kind of by chance. So, you find $20 on the street, or maybe you win the lotto or something like that. But it's really difficult to repeat and it's really hard to scale. Whereas there's money that is more skilled and it's still happy, but it's a different kind of money. So for example, working in a job that you love, doing work that you love, or investing in things that you enjoy investing in and earning money from that. Those are things that are it's in your control. Of course, there's a bit of luck involved still, but not as much as the lucky money. But it's also easier to replicate and scale because it's based on your skills. So I feel like a lot of the time we're taught in society that we kind of look at the people that win all the lucky money and it's like they won the lotto or I don't know, they got an inheritance or something like that, or a bonus.
You can't say, I bought a $2 lottery ticket and this week I won $23, so I'll just buy a $2 lottery ticket every week.
Exactly,
because there's no chance of that kind of happening.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas your skilled money, it's deeply fulfilling, even though sometimes it's a bit hard to build. But once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to replicate and scale. And we shouldn't be looking at the people winning all the lucky money because they can't even control it themselves. It's not even something that they asked for. It just happened. Whereas the people that are earning the skilled money, those are the kinds of people that we could get inspiration from. And we're like, how did they earn that skilled money? Or what did they do,
So back to kind of like the FIRE movement, do you think, and I reckon that the vibe has toned down a lot on, in our personal finance circles because it's not even about retiring early. It's about financial freedom. Do you have like a 10-second, 20-second view on FIRE movement as at today or your experience?
Yeah, so I have an interesting perspective because I have friends that were really into the FIRE movement, and I know this couple and they basically retired early in their 30s, and it was really surprising because one day I sat down with them and I was like, so how's early retirement going? How's it all going? And they said something really surprising to me, which was they actually went back to work part-time. And I was like, why? You spent so long trying to build up your nest egg so that you could quit your jobs. Why are you going back? And their answer was surprising, but also not surprising at the same time. They basically missed work because work gives you structure and it gives you something to live for and a bit of meaning in your day.
Yeah, I actually wrote down while you're talking purpose and dignity almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It
Not saying
feels
you
good.
can't get that from elsewhere because I also know people that have actually fired or retired at age 40 and younger, and they might volunteer at a charity 2 days a week for that purpose and dignity in their life where they've got an output.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like it makes sense. My dad also retired early. He was kind of forced to by the courts in order to get full custody of me. And although he loved the freedom and it was nice that he didn't have to stress about money because he had investments, even though we had a bit of a frugal lifestyle, I could see that he missed work and he still talks about his job. He loved it so much. And I kind of think that, retiring early is great, but I think also part of it is finding work that you really enjoy, that you would want to do forever.
Yeah.
And maybe not full time and maybe not so stressful, but just gives you a bit of meaning and contribution. Like you said, that dignity. You know?
Now, we're going to talk about the 4 money types that is in your book. But before we do that, this podcast is brought to you by Sphere Home Loans. We are pro-mortgage broker here. We believe that, we believe the data, and the data says now maybe over 70% of people are going to a broker as opposed direct to a bank. So it is becoming the main distribution channel for people to get their first mortgage, their second mortgage, and we just want to encourage everyone, if you do not have a mortgage broker, reach out to Sphere Home Loans. They support the podcast. There's a dedicated team of brokers that help our listeners. You can head to sphere.com.au, I think. I don't even know the website. Just Google Sphere Home Loans or there's a link below. So thank you, Sphere Home Loans. Otherwise, you better tell us who you are and what we're doing here.
Yeah, of course. So hi, I'm Queenie. I'm a personal finance creator. I'm a mum and now an author too. And you're listening to Money, Money, Money.
You're listening to Money, 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 or as the regulars like to call us, M3. Everything discussed on the podcast is general advice only, which I'm licensed to give, and details can be found in the show notes. My name's Glen James, former financial advisor, now podcaster. I host this show and a show called Retire Right. I've also got a book called The Quick Start Guide to Investing, which you can check out wherever good books are sold, or there's a link in the show notes. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening today. Now on with the show. So we touched on it just before we got started, and I was interested in this myself when I was looking at your book. You talk about the 4 money quadrants. Sounds like you've got something going on here, and I wanted to kind of double click on it and open the folder, if you will. So the 4 quadrants that you talk about, you've got fun and lucky money, fun and skilled money, heavy and lucky money, and heavy and skilled money. Now, for those kind of watching on YouTube, I took a quick photo of this, and I'm sharing the screen because, and you know, it's a bit primitive, but you'll be able to see the quadrant here. So fun and lucky money, that's your lotto ticket type inheritance or unexpected stuff that there was no skill. Heavy and lucky money, so no control over this, and
there's a bit of sadness attached to it.
Okay, so that could be the inheritance.
It could be the inheritance. There's a severance package as well, you know. But it's money, but you don't feel the best receiving it sometimes.
Yep. So that's the top left, fun and lucky. Bottom left, heavy and lucky money. Top right is fun and skilled money. And bottom right is heavy and skilled money. So going out on a limb to say we want to be maybe to have the best life and results in that fun and skilled money because we're enjoying what we do, we've got purpose, and the money's coming. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, exactly.
And then in the bottom right, skilled and heavy money. So that could, or maybe you tell me, is that like if you've got a job that's very demanding, you don't love it, but it's good money and you put up with it, is that kind of the vibe?
Exactly, yeah. Job that you hate, you don't love it, or just earning money in a way that feels a bit off, a bit ick, you know, or like scamming people, or you just feel like there's a bit of a mismatch. Yeah, because there's a skill
if you're being a fraudulent piece of crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But it doesn't feel great, you know?
Yeah. So what would you say to people who might be stuck in either of the heavy quadrants or not in that quadrant around fun and skilled?
I would say sometimes heavy money is completely unavoidable, you know, and sometimes it's a stepping stone into that fun and lucky quadrant because sometimes you do have to work in a job that you hate for a little while to get experience and then to move on to better things. But I would say use it as a stepping stone into better things and just be aware if you are in that quadrant, how you can get out of it, you know, and move on to happier things because when you earn money in a way that feels good and fulfilling, you want to earn more money, if that makes sense, because you enjoy the work. You want to keep on going with it, and you feel good about earning it. When you receive that money, you feel it's happy, positive energy, and you don't feel guilty about it. Because I feel like sometimes in our society we talk about how some people think that money is evil, and sometimes it can be, because sometimes it's earned in ways that are kind of evil, But
Or
money
used in ways that are evil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But money can also be really good, and it can be used in ways that are happy and fulfilling, and we can spread that happy, positive money as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always kind of think money is just a tool, and you can use that tool to build or destroy.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that I love reading in money books, and I loved reading the pages that you talked about mindset and self-sabotage. And one of the things that I actually hadn't seen before was you talk about your shadow self. What is that? Talk to us about that and, how it can impact our money behaviors.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. It comes from Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, and basically he has this philosophy that we all have a side to ourselves that we like to show the world, like there's a Glen that you're happy to show the world, and this is who I am. It's all of your good traits, But then there's also a Glen that is your shadow Glen, that maybe it's the parts of you that you feel like aren't acceptable. Maybe throughout your lifetime, your parents, teachers, people around you have kind of, just said that part of yourself is something that's not really acceptable. So you hide it away, but it never really fully goes away. It's always there with you. And sometimes it comes out because we haven't fully made peace with it. So it's really interesting. Actually, the way that you can get an insight into your shadow self is by looking at what you judge other people for, because basically it's a bit like a mirror. If I can see you doing something, it's because I already have that in me as well. So I'll give you an example. For me, my shadow self is selfish. She's a bit selfish sometimes. Sometimes, say we're out at a restaurant and there's one slice of pizza and I'm looking at it, I really want to be the person that takes the last slice of pizza and doesn't feel bad about it. But I just cannot, because I guess the way that I've been raised and everything in society is like, no, you can't do that. You can't think of yourself. You have to put other people before you. So when I see people acting selfishly, I silently judge them. And this is not to say like everything that you think negatively about other people is an insight into your shadow self. Like just because you don't like murderers or rapists doesn't mean that you're a murderer or rapist.
Yeah.
It's more like those little weird triggers that you have that it's a bit like, why are you judging that person for that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and actually now that you talk about that, I had an experience where I experienced someone's shadow self. I was driving my car years ago at Baddo Bay, irrelevant, but whatever, and it was a hailstorm, just hailed out of nowhere. And it was just white everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, okay, there's just, anyway, I'm driving, went around the corner, like going 30 Ks an hour, really slow. And the car just kept going and it hit another car on the curb. Now, I could have reversed up and got out of there and would have got on with my life. But I left a note. I went up the driveway because it was at the bottom of the hill, knocked on the door, no one was home, walked down the driveway, slipped, sprained my ankle.
No.
Anyway, don't bury the lead. And I left a note like, hey, it was hailing here earlier. I've slid into your car. Here's my details. Please contact me and we'll get it repaired. And the guy called me and he was such in shock that someone would leave a note. And I was thinking, are you so surprised because you wouldn't leave a note?
Yeah.
I don't know. I always think about that as like, why is this person so surprised and grateful that I left a note?
Yeah, exactly.
I just like, no, that's what people do. Unless he's had experiences where people didn't leave notes. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good theme. What do you like? You talk about limiting money beliefs. what do you see most in your kind of online presence and community and in your Instagram DMs and all that with people with limiting money beliefs?
I think that people with limiting money beliefs, I do see a lot of women with limiting money beliefs because I do feel like in our society, when you look at the people that are good with money in the media, you often see like men, and there are very few like women in the space that, I mean, now there are more, which is really good. So I'm grateful that I have a little girl and she'll be able to grow up in a world where she does see more women doing things. She does see more women in finance and doing these sorts of things. But I do feel like a lot of women feel like, oh, I'm not good with numbers, I'm not good with maths, therefore I can't do this, which is completely false. Like money is not a gendered thing, like it has no gender. Like you said, it's a neutral thing. Anyone can be good with money.
I shared a meme on my Instagram once about crypto bros, and this girl slid into my DM and she's like, this is the problem. You're making it gendered. I'm like, it was a crypto bro meme. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Chill out.
That's what people think.
Tell your shadow self to go away from my DM.
Yeah, exactly. It's what people think, like crypto bros, finance bros, and it's like, it's not a gendered thing, It's just like it shouldn't be gendered, and it isn't gendered, Everyone uses money, you know?
So bizarre. So bizarre. Lost track of what I was saying just from the outraged DMs that I get. So you talked about you're probably more seeing a change that this limiting belief is actually going away, that you can be a young woman and be financially stable and build your financial life. Is that a succinct statement?
Of course. And even if you're not a woman, like there are other limiting beliefs that you might come across as well, like especially if you have, say, grown up in a family where money was tight, maybe money wasn't talked about a lot, you might feel like when you start to reach new levels of financial success that you feel uncomfortable with it, you don't know what to do with it. So you put yourself back down to the level that you're comfortable with, and you sabotage yourself.
Do you know, and a follow-up question, do you say it publicly, what percentage of followers on your Instagram are male, female?
It's kind of like about 70-30.
Right.
Yeah, between 70% female, 30% male. Sometimes it's 60% female, 40% male. It really just depends. What about you?
Well, that's what I mean. I'm just going to look it up. I'm pretty much over Instagram. I'm just trying to find analytics. Where is it? I think there is a high skew to women. I don't even know. Oh, gosh.
It depends on the platform too, because I have noticed on YouTube, it kind of flips. So it's 70% male, 30% female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where the analytics are?
Oh, yeah. So let me have a look.
I just went to the settings there. I'm so over Instagram because it's so transactional. But yeah, my traditional podcast on Apple and Spotify, there is a high skew, maybe up to 73-75% women.
Oh yeah, you're 61% female, 38% male.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Where on YouTube it's kind of the
opposite.
Very highly skewed to men.
Yeah, so, it is interesting. Isn't it? Different platforms.
Yeah. And my top age ranges on Instagram is 25 to 34.
Interesting. Yeah, similar.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. Hey, in your book, you mentioned that the first 100K to save, I'd imagine, is the hardest. What changes when people get to that ton?
Yeah. So we were talking about it earlier, but basically it feels like the first $100,000 is just so difficult, and you might be having to make all these sacrifices, and it might not feel good in the moment, and you might think, oh my gosh, am I going to have to do this forever? But absolutely not, It's just to get to that point, the first $100,000 is the hardest and it gets easier. So I do feel like a lot of that, we were talking about the FIRE movement earlier, how they're like, be frugal, do this, like reuse all your things and
Reuse, replace, recycle.
Exactly.
Which is
yes,
good.
it
do
is
that.
really good practices. But yeah, sometimes it does get a bit extreme. But I think it does get more extreme if you already have a good base to begin with. I feel like those things are really good to kind of like get your foundation sorted and get to that point of building your first $100,000. It's good to be frugal, to do all the things. But I think once you get to that point, it's kind of like, well, you're not going to save that much more by, sacrificing your enjoyment forever, if that makes sense. So that's why it makes sense to live a little, enjoy life, because while you might save a bit more, what you sacrifice is like a lot greater in the long run, if that makes sense.
And the basic maths of it is like if you had $100,000 invested and it got 8%, that's $8,000 in that year. Your savings rate might not be $8,000 a year.
Exactly.
So you get to this tipping point, and that's why you just have to get there. They say the first million's the hardest, and then the rest come after, maybe. But it's that first 100 in terms of actual savings, whether it's in an interest-bearing account of 5% or invested at 8 or 9. You really see the impact of compounding before then.
Exactly.
One of the things I like, you said in the book, hard choices lead to an easier life, and that hits hard. But what was one hard financial decision that you made that you think paid off?
Yeah, I'll just have a think about this one.
Have a think about that.
I like this one.
And while you're racking your brain with an example, we'll take a break and we'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au. And they'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, we're back. Queenie's had time to think about one kind of hard choice financially that she had to make that paid off later. Don't leave us hanging. What do you reckon is an example?
Okay, so I would say leaving my job to pursue this business full-time. So I'm a full-time content creator now, but it didn't always start like this. This was just a side hustle. I would work on the weekends, after work, in my full-time job. I actually started during the COVID period because I've always wanted to make content, but I felt like at that time when we were all working from home, we couldn't go out and do anything. I was like, I have no excuse anymore to keep putting this off. So that's the reason why I started it. I was just doing it on the side, and then it kind of got to this point. I wasn't able to replace my salary fully with my side hustle, but it was at a point where I was making consistently a few thousand each month, and I had quite a bit of money saved. And I was like, might as well do it, might as well give it a go.
Yeah.
And so I left my job, which was really hard at the time because I was 23. I was earning really good money. I was on $120,000 a year plus super. And
any jobs going there?
I know, right? Yeah, it was a really great company. Loved the vibe. It was a great startup, like going places as well. So it kind of felt like risky, doing that. But I knew that if I didn't do it, then I would always be wondering. And it was difficult for the first few months because going from being able to save quite a bit of my salary to basically not being able to using some of my savings to just live, and because I wasn't earning much from my content business, it took a few months,
And we're here now, and you've lived to tell the day. But any regrets?
Any regrets? I would say it sounds silly, but not dreaming bigger or not allowing myself to kind of like think about different possibilities. Because I think at the time when you're doing your things, like you feel like everything's impossible and you think that everything that is to be done is for somebody that isn't you, if that makes sense. Like, oh, only people like that do things like that. It couldn't be for me. And I think once you sort of get out of that mindset, like stop those limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, and just allow yourself to dream like you did when you were a little kid, you know, like you can do things as well. And if somebody else is out there doing what you want to be doing, then you know that it's possible. You know, it absolutely is possible.
Far out, in this kind of therapy session for Glen, you know, it was just, I won't indulge everyone, but, you know, I did a whole heap of work last year on schema therapy. And basically you sit down with a psychologist and you go through kind of the top schemes that you operate in. And one of the top one for me was like an insufficient impulse control type thing. And then the next one I think was failure. And as you said that as a little kid dreaming, I always thought I would like to be this. And then instantly you're not smart enough.
Yeah.
So for me, dreaming as a kid, like I always wanted to be in radio or be a radio host and all that. And I'm like, oh, no, I'll never get those opportunities. Or I'd like to learn to fly a plane. Oh, no, not smart enough. And here I am running a radio show basically. But yeah, I think, I don't know why I said all that, but you're just speaking to me, I think, and reflecting. But it's not easy. It's worth it.
Exactly.
I think that's
And the
really
journey
good
is
thing
fun
Yeah.
too, you know, even if it doesn't happen straight away, it's like fun to be on that journey.
Yeah, it's funny. You know how they go like it's the journey? My inherent nature is I'm not a journey person, I'm a destination person. I'm like, I don't care. Drive fast, not look at the scenery, let's get there. Where other people will drive, oh, this is a beautiful drive. Don't we just love the journey? So I've had to learn to kind of lean into the journey. Let's talk a little bit about investing. What does your own personal investing strategy look like today? Because you talk a lot about investing in the book, and it was good that you've laid down steps for people to, get started. Okay, well, maybe get a little emergency fund first. And then, so it's quite good in that regard. But what does it look like for you?
I wish I could say that I started perfectly and like I've just stuck to the same strategy and, you know, it's always been like that, but it wasn't. It was a bit of a bumpy road, to be honest. I think when I first started investing, I had this very simple strategy, which was just go with a robo-advisor. And for people who don't know what that is, it's basically a broker that kind of asks you a series of questions and then it puts you into an investment fund based on
your risk tolerance and goals.
Yeah, exactly. And I had one of those and it was working. I was just depositing extra money that I had into this fund and it would just invest for me.
So why isn't that, when you said it didn't get started perfectly, what's wrong with that?
It was good.
Yeah.
But then I kind of got overconfident and
Right.
I was like, well, these returns are okay, but they just track the market.
Yeah.
I want to beat the market.
Right.
So that's when I started to research Warren Buffett
Right.
and I was looking at all these YouTube videos and shareholder reports and company reports and researching the CEOs and it just
Wow,
got
you
real
into the
complicated.
weeds, yeah.
Glenn, it got really complicated. And then Pablo and I, we had this simple system that was working. And then suddenly we were like, now we have to pick individual stocks. We have to be like value investors. And we made a huge investing mistake, which was we basically stopped investing for a few months because we would just overcomplicated everything.
Yeah, you're trying to pick winners and analysis paralysis and, we'll wait a day and then a day becomes a week and then, no, it'll come down low, yeah.
And then it just keeps on rising and then you're like, damn it, now I'm never going to be able to invest. And I think what we realized is by keeping it simple is actually the best strategy. So now we've scaled it back down. We are automatically investing just 20% of our pay each month automatically into some ETFs. If we find any cool opportunities in stocks or companies we want to buy, bit of crypto as well, dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, if we find any cool opportunities, we buy them. But we're not just kind of waiting on the sidelines until the world crashes and then you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. Do you have any hard and fast rules of thumb or guides in your life if an opportunity came your way that looked okay?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have our emergency fund, which I think is the most important point. That is basically a buffer just in case anything goes wrong. We have some money saved. So if there are any cool opportunities, definitely happy to invest in them. I mean, we're already working on a side business, which is
we'll talk about that
tool.
soon.
Yeah. So I feel like it's good to have a bit of money to kind of experiment and to really indulge those other, we all have a side to ourselves that just wants to keep it simple, things to automate, but then we might have a side that's creative.
So on that, if you do have cash or opportunity fund or whatever to the side and something does come along, do you have some type of criteria to stop you getting flushed or some metric to run it through or anything like that?
Ooh, I would say I am a bit of although I do think it's good to take risk, I'm not a all or nothing kind of person. So I do
It's wrecked me.
Oh no.
But that's why I say this, because I've got frameworks in place now to protect myself.
That's really good. I would say being a finance creator helps, because if I would be ashamed to tell my community what I've done, then that's probably not a good sign. So I like to think about what would the smartest version of myself do in this situation. So when I was starting my budgeting tool, my SaaS product, I, instead of just okay, I'm going to set aside $1 million to go all in and get all these investors and then bang, we're going to spend all the money. And, if I wouldn't tell my community that's the plan, that's what I'm doing, then probably not a good idea if I wouldn't tell everyone.
Yeah, that's good.
But so I scaled it back and I was okay, I'm going to set aside $20,000 and that's just going to be a start. I'm going to spend the money, and if I see traction, then I'm happy to invest a bit more. But if I don't see traction, if it's not working, then we'll have to cut it right there. So I think little bits at a time what I'm comfortable telling people about.
Yeah, that's good, because at least it's that lens. Could I do an Instagram story telling people about the last investment? I was well, no, because it was a bit dodgy and
exactly.
I wasn't proud that I invested in munitions or cigarettes or whatever the thing is that doesn't line up with you. That's a good thing.
Exactly. What's your framework?
So for my framework is number one, just because it comes across my desk doesn't mean I jump.
Yeah.
Did I wake up this morning wanting to invest in a farm that did this or whatever? But if it does come across my desk and it piques my interest, so I've got a couple of little, you call them startup companies that I've put money into. In terms of financial guardrail, I probably wouldn't put more than 10% of my equity portfolio into individual stocks or speckies or anything like that. So I've got a hard financial thing, because the problem is if someone, I'll use an example. If someone's listening and they've got $20,000 saved in cash above their emergency fund and they get the phone call, hey, it's Glen here. I've got a really good opportunity for you. We're doing this startup. We're looking for some investors. It's going to the moon. Awesome. So if I put that $20,000 in there, and that's all I had, number one, I'm violating every type of diversification rule basically on the planet, I think. There's a carve-out, and ask me the carve-out. I'll just make a note. Now, if that $20,000, if you invested that $20,000, number one, it's going to be highly illiquid. You might not see the money 3 to 5 years or ever, even if it's worth something. In 3 to 5 years or 8 years, they say, hey, thanks for the $20,000 3 years ago or 4 years ago. It's now worth $80,000. Oh, that's awesome. But over the scheme of your life, that gain of $60,000 is not going to hugely change your life. Okay? But the problem is there is a high chance of a downside risk of you not seeing that money ever and getting flushed. And that actually means that losing that $20,000 for you is probably worse for your financial situation than the chance of it getting to $80,000. So if you use the 10% specky opportunity rule, even if you had $20,000, sure, throw 10% in it, knock yourself out. If it doubles, awesome. I'll take an extra $2,000 out, get on with my life. I love 100% return. But if it goes to nothing and you get flushed, you're not flushing your whole $20,000 portfolio or cash. You're only flushing $2,000. So
I love it.
I know you didn't want a podcast, but
No, it's good. It's really good. Yeah, it makes sense.
now the carve out is, Warren Buffett basically violates every diversification rule and every rule because he is Warren Buffett. No one is like him. He even basically says, hey, when I die or whatever, put this money in an index fund.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, and even in your book, you mentioned that the example of the hedge fund managers versus the index, and the index was better. So I take risks, don't get me wrong, but I'm not putting everything in the one thing because the upside the upside's good, but it's not as good, or it's not as bad as the downside, or whatever you mean. So
Exactly. No, it's so true. It's so true.
yeah, well, there you go. You just had a podcast. I shouldn't have went on that
No,
tangent.
I think it's good. It's good to know.
So within that, though, talk to us about Billroo. You said you started and you invested $20,000 just to see if you could get it lifted off and if there was legs. It is a budgeting app that you've started with Pablo. What is it and why should someone use it?
So initially we started it. It was interesting. We were doing these little catch-ups with our subscribers, and we were on this call with this one lady, and she is really smart. She works at a tech company. I think she was doing like UX design, something technical. And this lady is so switched on. She's young. She had just bought her first home by herself. She was just really impressive. And we were talking to her about, what her investment strategy is, what she was doing with her money. And she was just saying, I use this app for investing. I use this for this and this for this. And then she just said in passing, but, I haven't been able to find a really good budgeting app. And it wasn't like a whole thing. Like she just said it in passing. But that, Pablo really, that kind of took him aback. And after the call, he was like, hey, Queenie, she mentioned that she hasn't been able to find a really good budgeting tool. And that's interesting because we haven't either. And, being personal finance creators, we love, people reach out to us all the time, hey, there's this new app, try this. And we've tried so many. We've tried, so many different apps, different tools, different systems. But we just kept on going back to using our spreadsheet because it just, they just didn't do what we wanted it to do. We just wanted a simple way to see how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, where's it going, like we do with our business. So we have Xero for our business, and we just love, to be honest, I'm a bit addicted to it. I log in and I'm like, where did the money come from? Okay, where did it go? And I love looking at those sorts of things, but I just haven't been able to do that for my personal finances. And why? So that's why we started it. And I used to work at a tech company, so I already knew designers and developers that were working full-time jobs that, friends that we could kind of get them to work as a side hustle on the side. And basically to get it up off the ground, we invested $20,000 initially. I think we ended up spending a bit closer to $30,000 on all of the cloud technology and all of the subscriptions and everything.
Yeah.
But it was money that we were comfortable with losing if it all went to crap. But thankfully, it did have legs and people were using it. And we've learned a lot. Now we're 2 years in, so we were building it for a year in the background, and then we launched about a year ago. the paid version and everything. Initially, it was a bit slow. Not going to lie. I think in our first month we made $51.
Woo.
I
Hey,
was
that's
like,
good.
oh my gosh, this is terrible, because at that point we had invested about almost $70,000, so about $60,000, $70,000. So I was freaking out when we only made $51. But we made all these improvements, and now we've made $30,000,
Yeah,
like just from
awesome.
subscriptions. And
Over the last 2 years, would you say?
over the last few months.
Few months,
Because we've really
awesome.
made a few changes, and then it really like improved, it scaled up, and now we like make a few thousand like each month,
Can someone?
and it's growing quite a lot, which
what's
is really
the
cool.
minimum monthly cost?
It's $6.50.
Yeah.
So we are like, it used to be $5.50, but we've added some new features and tools, and we are looking at increasing the price like as we build more features.
Is there an option to
And an app.
pay yearly and be done with it?
Yeah. There's an
awesome.
option to pay yearly, and for our early subscribers like that came in early, we haven't actually increased the price for them, so they're still on like the legacy price. But yeah, it's been really cool.
So with all this open banking and stuff, you basically, people can go in, connect all their accounts and get the bank feeds. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly. We do have to pay like the reason why it's not free is because we do have to pay like a subscription fee for each user to use those bank feeds. So when you have a lot of users, the costs really add up.
Is it,
Fiscal.
but
Yeah.
what was there another one? Oh, I forget. I'm just out of that tech world.
Yeah.
Where they kind of, it's the connector between you and the banks
Yeah.
and all that. Yeah. Yeah, cool. And so what do you reckon the winning thing that you've nailed with Billroo as opposed to, I don't know, incumbent spending crap in other bank apps or other people? Like, are you hearing something out there from your community that they weren't getting that you've put into it?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people weren't looking at this space, because when I would tell people that we were starting this business, like people would just say, no one's going to want to spend money on a consumer budgeting tool. And like, why would people do that? And, we were a bit disheartened. We were like, are we just strange for doing our budgeting every month in a spreadsheet and for wanting a tool like this to exist? But we've proven the model out, and people want this, you know? There's just no one that has been able to give it to them. And I think it's especially for people, and not going to lie, I think something I've noticed about my audience and the people in our community is they're really smart. They're smart people. Like, a lot of them are much smarter than me, and they love finance. Like, they're kind of a bit nerdy when it comes to finance, and they just don't have a tool or someone serving them. So there is a big segment of people that are really savvy with their finances. They're underserved. They don't have somebody making a tool for them. And a lot of them have side hustles or like a side business as well. So that's something that we're looking to develop further, like for solopreneurs and small business owners to basically be able to do their taxes and also budgeting at the same time and send invoices and those sorts of things.
The tool, and I've only had a brief look at it, I think, last year when you sent it to me to have a look at. Does the tool allow, like if there was a member of couples, that they can both have their a login each and see a joint budget?
We are developing those tools soon. So
Yeah.
it's actually one of our top requested features.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, that's something that we're going to do. Once we have we want to have like a little code sign in. So when you sign in, you get a code to your email. And basically by having that code sign in, it will enable us to be able to have multiple users share
Great.
the same account with a code.
Yeah.
Once we have that, we'll build that out soon.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Love it. Now, time has flown by, as it does. The Fun Finance Formula, it is available now. We'll put a link in the show notes or the YouTube description or whatever. Grab yourself a copy, read it over a coffee. Look, I really loved reading the mindset stuff at the start, because I think my whole thing is, if you can't get the thing in your mirror sorted out, you're going to have a lot of other drama with your money, with your relationships, with your health. And Yeah, I just think you've done such a great job. It is a fun read. It's an easy read, and that isn't a negative. It's actually an art to write a money book easily. But if you could say to somebody who was starting from zero or standstill, they might be in a financial mess or whatever, what's some like low-hanging fruit of things that they could do to get on track straight away, whether it's in the book or not?
Yeah, I would say play a game of Monopoly and see how you feel about it, because I know that game can get quite heated, especially if you are competitive.
I was going to say, Monopoly, you're dead to me. Monopoly Deal, come at me. I love Monopoly Deal.
It's so much fun, and I feel like it kind of illustrates that kind of play and creativity that I feel like people that are good with money have when they think about their finances.
Yeah, so gamify something.
Gamify it, make it fun.
Yeah.
Feel like you're kind of moving through the Monopoly board, collecting little properties and things like that. And if you can see your finances like that, like a game, like don't take it too seriously, then I feel like it becomes more fun,
Yeah. Was there anything that I haven't asked you or anything else that you wanted to share with everyone today about anything? I don't even mind whether it's in the book, in the Billroo, or anything else. Anything?
No. I'm happy. This is so much fun chatting.
Yeah, it was good. So, well, we might end it there. Queenie, the author of The Fun Finance Formula, Unlock the Secret to Growing Your Money and Loving Every Step. The inside cover's cool with the design and the, the kind of almost a map thing. Discover, mindset, gratitude, goals, intention, balance. And then the other part is save, invest, property, track, mini retirements, pay it forward. We didn't get to mini retirements, but hey, grab the book and you'll be able to have a mini retirement. My name is Glen James, joined by Queenie Tan, Invest with Queenie on Instagram. You can check out Billroo from her website. Thank you so much, Queenie.
Thanks so much for having me.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.